Hello, welcome to the UNLV Writing Center workshop on the basics of plagiarism. This workshop video will help you understand what plagiarism is, why writers need to avoid it in academic writing, and how to identify plagiarism. At the end of this video, we will offer a quick hands-on activity to give you more practice identifying plagiarism. Academic writing is a formal style of writing that is used in professional, scholarly, and educational settings. Writing academic papers helps you to learn and comprehend new ideas for yourself. When you incorporate sources in your writing, you learn what other experts have said about topics important to you, and you get to build your own ideas from what you read. Through writing, you are able to build strong communication, critical thinking, presentation, and problem-solving skills. Often, academic writing is designed for a writer to think critically about a topic, conduct research to gather information on it, and present it clearly to professors, classmates, and other academics. Because research is a central component to academic writing, the most important tools to use when doing any academic writing project are outside sources. The use of sources establishes credibility by enhancing your claim, allows you to establish a sense of trust with the reader, builds upon previous knowledge, and indicates a specific point of entry in an academic conversation. Using sources properly is a skill that needs to be developed and practiced. It is difficult to use quotes and information from sources, and it may continue to be difficult for all writers until they practice using them over and over again. This is why students who are new to writing research papers often struggle with how to use these sources correctly. It's not just about finding good information, it's about how you incorporate that information into your own work. Failure to include quotations or citations and paraphrasing too closely to the original source may result in unintentional plagiarism. This is why understanding not just why to use sources, but how to use them is such a crucial part of academic writing. In order to begin the practice that is needed to develop the skills necessary to use sources effectively, writers must first understand how to use sources in their work. We will now discuss these skills so that you can be more confident and prepared when you begin writing your next paper. University bodies protect the integrity of the institution by ensuring that the work it produces upholds the highest standards of academic integrity. Plagiarism is a form of academic misconduct, whether it is done intentionally or unintentionally, and is taken seriously by both professors and UNLV. The UNLV Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities defines plagiarism as using the work, words, or ideas of another from any source without proper citation of the sources. Plagiarism is considered theft because a writer takes ideas from a source without giving proper credit to the original author. In essence, it is when a writer plays off someone else's writing as if it is their own. While it's important to know that this is the formal definition of plagiarism, it is common for universities, including UNLV, to also consider the following two actions as plagiarism or academic misconduct. Falsifying information for inclusion in an assigned paper, project, or exercise, including but not limited to inventing or altering data from a laboratory or field project, or creating fictional citations for a paper. In this instance, the writer is making up untrue information and pretending that it is accurate. Even though UNLV does not consider the falsification of data as plagiarism, it is a writing-related academic misconduct violation, so we wanted to mention it in this video. Submitting work that is not a student's own original work for any academic exercise, such as turning in the same work in more than one class, or when repeating a class, this is often called self-plagiarism. In this instance, even though the writer actually wrote the paper themselves, they had a different purpose for doing so and have already been evaluated on it. By not writing a new paper, the writer is missing out on valuable learning and outcomes that the professor had for them. However, if you have written a paper that you think fits for a different class or instructor, talk to them about whether you might reuse some or all of it. It is helpful to know that there are different actions that can be considered plagiarism. We want to make sure that you know what they are so that you can recognize when you might be plagiarizing. First is direct plagiarism. This is when you knowingly buy, steal, translate, or use a paper written by someone else and say it's yours. You copy or borrow passages from a source and pass them off as your own by not attributing the original source or author, meaning you use information or language from a source without citing it and explaining where it came from. Inadvertent plagiarism is when a writer accidentally copies or borrows language or information from a source without citing it, even though they do not intend to cheat. This could mean that the writer does not include a signal phrase or an in-text citation for quoted or paraphrased material. This could also be called accidental plagiarism. Here we have a sample of writing from a student who is writing a paper on the novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. We also see an excerpt from an article that the student found that discusses their topic. We can see the student has copied and pasted a sentence from the source directly into the writing, but they did not indicate in any way the sentence comes from somewhere else. This is an example of plagiarism because a student did not add a signal phrase or an in-text citation to give attribution to the original author. It does not matter if the writer misused the source unintentionally or intentionally, it is still considered plagiarism. In order to fix this form of plagiarism, all we need to do is add quotation marks around the quote from the original source and attribute to the original author through a signal phrase such as pick notes, and include an in-text citation. This slide depicts three other types of plagiarism that exist. The first is patch writing. Patch writing is making minor changes to any sentence someone else has written. In other words, when a writer is trying to paraphrase but does not do it appropriately. Here, we see the same paper, but the student is trying to paraphrase the source rather than directly quote it. They have searched for synonyms to replace some of the key words and change the order of examples. This is considered patch writing. They haven't reworked the sentence enough to where it is a completely new sentence, and they are still not giving credit to the writer who came up with the idea. Patch writing is a legitimate step in the process of learning how to properly paraphrase. However, as college-level writers, professors will expect their students to be able to paraphrase more successfully than was done in this example. Often, plagiarism due to patch writing is done unintentionally. The most key thing is to make sure that you are paraphrasing correctly and giving attribution to the author of the original source. Coming back to our list of types of plagiarism, the next is self-plagiarism. You also cannot reuse a paper that you have already written in the same or another class. That is considered self-plagiarism. You must receive your instructor's permission to recycle even part of an old paper that you wrote. The last kind of plagiarism we will be discussing is falsifying source information. This is when a writer changes information from a source to help support their paper. This can be done by changing data or statistics from an experiment or project, creating citations for sources that do not exist, or creating any kind of false information from an original source. The Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities here at UNLV has stated that UNLV is first and foremost an academic community with its fundamental purpose the pursuit of learning and student development, and enabling all to reach their highest potential. UNLV believes that any instance of academic misconduct hurts the entire community, and that the values of honesty, trust, respect, fairness, responsibility, and professionalism are paramount. Some, but not all, of the consequences you may experience if you intentionally or unintentionally plagiarize are OSRR's website shows that students may receive a failing grade, have to resubmit an assignment, get a lower grade, fail an assignment, or receive a warning. It is important to be aware of the consequences that can occur due to plagiarism, but it's also important to recognize that by taking writing assignments seriously, spending adequate time working with source material, knowing the steps to integrate sources appropriately, and avoiding direct methods of plagiarizing or cheating, you've essentially built a strong foundation that makes avoiding plagiarism second nature. It becomes less about memorizing the rules and more about consistently applying good academic practices. Understanding plagiarism and ways to avoid it can help you succeed in your academic writing and career. For more information on what is recognized as plagiarism and the consequences of plagiarism here at UNLV, please go to the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities website. The link to their website can be found in the description of this video. Understanding the definitions and consequences of plagiarism is a vital step, and the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities website is an excellent resource for that. However, truly avoiding plagiarism in your academic work also involves developing strong writing and research skills. The Writing Center can help with that. Writing Center consultants can help you create strategies for managing time, quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing, citing properly based on the citation style, and more. We want to share a bit of information about how the UNLV Writing Center can support you on your writing. But stick around after this for a quick hands-on activity to see if you can identify plagiarism. Keep an eye out for more resources on incorporating sources or about other writing-related topics on our website, unlv.edu/writing-center. If you want to learn more about meeting with a Writing Center consultant or have other questions, give us a call at 702-895-3908. Email or send us a Google chat to writingcenter@unlv.edu. Or stop by our office on campus to check us out. For more fun writing tips and memes, follow us on social media too. Before you leave, we want to give you one chance to practice recognizing whether a student might be plagiarizing in their writing. An excerpt from the original source is shown on the left side of the slide. The authors, Greenberg et al., state, "Moral injury, a term that originated in the military, can be defined as the psychological distress that results from actions or lack of them which violate someone's moral or ethical code." On the right-hand side of the slide, we see an attempted paraphrase of that sentence. They tend to paraphrase states moral injury, a word that comes from military origins, is defined as a psychological pain that results from activity or lack of it, which goes against someone's moral or ethical values. Now remember, when paraphrasing, the writer needs to express the main idea of the passage in their own words and cite the original source. So, is this attempted sentence plagiarism? Yes, it is. We see two reasons that this would be considered plagiarism. First, the paraphrase sentence on the right closely mirrors the original on the left in both word choice and structure. Words, phrases, sentence structure, and even punctuation are reused, which we have put in bold here to help you see. The paraphrase sentence is too similar to the original source. Second, there is no in text citation or signal phrase to give credit to the original author. For more information on quoting, paraphrasing, summarizing, and citing sources appropriately, please check the description of this video for links to videos, handouts, and other resources provided by the Writing Center. Remember, if you need any help with your writing or have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Writing Center by email, appointment, or phone call. Happy writing!